Hari, 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 bo. Okay. Good job. And in the temple too. Very auspicious. What brings you to the temple this morning, Rakesh?
We just thought that we'll go. It's been a while, and we have more devotees at the temple joined us for the kirtan.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful, great. Well, let's go around and everybody just take 1 or 2 minutes to say something significant that happened to you in this past week, either for good or for bad. Doesn't matter. Just share something, what's going on in your life. So you start, Rakesh and Subi.
Sure. So you want to say something? No? Okay. So, yes, Prabhuji, it's been a good week, and there have been like few things, like I'm telling from last couple of weeks in the material life, few things are going on that are like a fun ride,
Just
ups
focus
and
on one.
ups. Yeah. So it's been a good week, Prabhuji. It's a good learning. Something happened that's teaching me that no matter how much we try, we think we are the doer, we have things under control, but no, Krishna always reveals himself in a way that, okay, you think you are the controller, then let me give you a taste of the reality. So that's what's going on with me. I'm sometimes it's hard to swallow, but I'm slowly coming to peace with it and enjoying it. That yeah, and leaving it to Krishna now with folded hands. That whatever is happening for good. That's my realization for the week.
Prakriti Kriyamanani Gunai Karmasa, 327. We think we're the doers, but actually nothing is further than from the truth.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Rob, anything in your own personal experience or anything interesting you picked up from the wisdom of the sages at all?
Not specifically from wisdom of the sages. This week's been a challenge for me in accepting that I'm not the controller, for sure, and which has also been a lesson in patience as well, and knowing that there's a lot of growth in waiting as much as there is in action as well. So it's been a learning experience, and it was absolutely wonderful to be at the temple last night. It was a wonderful, wonderful night.
Would you agree with some people that Prashant made a very good debut as a speaker? That was his first time.
That was excellent. I would not have known that was his first time. He had a lot of very good information. It was a very relevant talk for me.
Were you able to understand his accent okay?
For the most part, yes. I sat a little bit closer than I did the first time, and so the resonance of the room didn't interfere with my ability to hear him very much. So it was good.
Yeah, I think what the frequent visitors to the temple find that you have to kind of tune yourself by finding the best place to sit, because certain places, especially the ones that are 2/3 or 3/4 back, you get a lot more resonance. So you need to, everybody needs to find their own sweet spot in the temple.
Exactly.
All right. Govinda Dave, anything to share?
Two things, one bad, one good. The bad one is that my son Clayton came to visit from Washington. He had a bunch of friends come visit to go skiing, and literally his first run, within the first 10 minutes, he broke his kneecap. He's having surgery in a couple of hours. So that was the bad news. And the good news kind of aligns with the idea that none of us is really the doer. And I'd like to introduce you to my granddaughter, who was born about 3 days ago. Looks like she had kind of a tough birth, actually. But who could presume to think that the mom and dad did this? Of course not. And it's really just such an incredible blessing. She cleaned up nicely.
So we're not the controller, and that's a darn good thing.
Yes. Anyway, so that's my week. Thank you.
Miracles like that wouldn't happen. Okay. Bhakta Matsu, you there? Want to share anything?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
A little louder.
Can you hear me okay?
Sort of.
Sorry, I wasn't really prepared. Can you hear me now?
That's great. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, something inspiring that happened this week is two Prabhupada disciples called me yesterday and gave me some really nice advice and got me really fired up about Krishna consciousness. And I just really appreciate those tender mercies that come every once in a while.
We're always in need of advice too. So what was it?
Well, just one of the particular Prabhupada disciples.
How to avoid family life. That's probably helpful for
Well,
many
he
of
was
us,
just giving me
including some of us.
he was just giving me just more general advice, not anything about ashram life or anything, but yeah, he was just reminding me how temporary this life is and how fortunate we are to have come onto the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada and Gaur Nitai and Radha Krishna Yugal, and that we should really use the facilities that we've been given with this material body to capitalize on this this beautiful opportunity to pursue the goal of life.
In other words, don't use sandalwood for cooking.
Exactly. There you go.
It's worth a lot more than just as wood for cooking, as we heard last night, which was a beautiful, beautiful example. So you're saying the same thing in a different way. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Saravi, anything to share with us, either plus or negative, honor, dishonor, hot or cold, good or bad?
Hare Krishna, everyone. Like in my last week reading, I read that spiritual seekers should not whine, but still I'm going to whine. The last week when I was having this class, my son interrupted multiple times and I wanted to focus more, and he was determined to disturb me more. that was it. But today he is calm, so I'm happy.
Okay, good. So you have to practice your maternal patience. All right. Kapilji and Ishan, is anything to share?
Anything? Probably one good thing and one not so good thing. So the good thing is Vinita got her first shot of vaccination 2 days ago. So that's a good thing.
Haribo.
Not so good thing is she's the only one who got it in the family. Oh, that's it.
Ishan, what about you?
I don't really have anything.
Okay. All right. Ras Vilas and Sundari Priya, Amrita Sundari. Are they there? Okay.
Amrita is there.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. I was trying to unmute myself. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Shri Prabhupada. All glories to all the assembled devotees. At one point last week, I just remembered a service by some devotee, and it gave me so much joy. And I realized, that the process of bhakti is so infinitely happy. In the earlier stages, you are happy when you do something, right? And then when you really gain the same happiness seeing somebody else's service, then it's unbelievable. It's so joyful.
Pada dukkha dukhi, you feel others' pain is yours, but you feel others' happiness is yours also.
Yeah.
Any progress that anyone makes back to home, back to Godhead, that should be our joy.
Yeah.
In fact, the greatest souls don't even want to go back until every other living entity has already preceded them.
Mm.
All right. Sundari Priya, are you there?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, and Hare Krishna, everybody. This is Satnam Vallabhe. Yeah, so I am living a blissful life here and nothing to complain. If anything, my mind is the one that has to be chained and said, I do not want to hear you. So the impressions of the realizations I have been having past few days is that the impressions of the mind is so subtle and so strong. And we've been attending this Manashiksha class, and Raghunath Das Goswami's teachings are so profound and subtle that unless we let it go and attach ourselves to the lotus feet of the Lord, we can't, there's no hope. There's no hope because it's so subtle. And I can see why people cannot remember Krishna at the time of death, because we've been playing this movie of our life, picture after picture after picture, and just doing service and Vaishnava's mercies, Krishna's mercy is what I really want to hold on to. That's my only chance. So thank you for all the devotees for my.
Fantastic. Govinda Bhakti, you want to share anything with us?
With us, Mathura Vallabh Prabhu, disciple of Jayapataka Maharaj.
Oh, nice. Welcome to Utah.
He's the one who arranges all Jagannath Rath Yatra festival here in Phoenix for last 4 years.
Oh, in Phoenix.
Yeah.
That's near. They asked me about the first one. It was on a park, a traffic island, sort of near the university there. Do you still have it in the same place?
No, there.
It's in Phoenix now. We moved to Phoenix, city of Phoenix now.
No, this was near the Arizona State University that they had the first Rath Yatra, I think.
Yes, but now that we moved to city of Phoenix.
Isn't Arizona State University in Phoenix?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But now that it's been about 20 minutes drive from temple, it's in a different place now.
Okay.
Yeah. Because the ASU is fully covered with the business and the shops. They're not giving permission there.
Okay, good, good. We used to do the Christmas fair 2 or 3 years. We went down and we sold prasadam at the Christmas fair in December. It was huge. We used to do thousands and thousands of dollars in the old days.
Okay.
So you're welcome to Salt Lake City. Good to have you here.
Good to have you here. How long
Thank
you
you.
staying? How long you stay?
Good.
Like 3 or 4 days maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? Anything to share? Go, GB?
No, actually, I was just going through this today's verse, 216. And last 3 days, I was contemplating, that thing has come again. The association and hearing about the Lord in the association, how it gives wonderful impact. Yesterday, actually, I spoke on that Dhruva Maharaj's prayers and how Dhruva Maharaj he himself glorifies the process of devotional service. Actually, again, that is going to come today. And let's see your enlightened words and your experience for last 45 years, what we can get it from.
Well, I just try and keep the ball moving from one person to another. Usually the one that did the kirtan, we ask them to read the verse and the translation. That would be Rakesh. But I want to share something with you too, a personal discovery that I made this week. Wednesday night, I think I had a Zoom call somewhere else, but I kept seeing this advertisement for Arise from Bhakti Yoga London. And as I looked at it the 4th or 5th time and actually started to read, it said, it's a festival of the spoken word, hip hop, rap, and poetry that devotees have written. And I thought, wow, that's for me. And I had something else going on concurrently, so I wasn't able to watch it live, but I listened to everything Thursday, and it was probably about a dozen, maybe 12 or 15, including Bali Rico from the Mayapuris, and Jake Emlyn, of whom I'm already aware is an excellent Krishna conscious hip hop artist, and the rest I didn't know. But just amazing, using the power of words and literacy. Some of these people are very highly educated, and their ability to use words to describe and to glorify Krishna in a devotional service is just so impressive. And so I've got my work cut out for me, going back, listening to all of their verses and transcribing them so that I can learn some of those verses myself. I did transcribe one poem by Jake Emlyn called Consider the Soul, which I'll share with you sometime. All right, Omkar's just joined us. You want to add anything about how your week went, Omkar? And then we'll ask Rakesh and Subi to lead us off with the verse and a little commentary.
I think Rakesh Prabhu should be there in kitchen. So I think someone else has to.
So then we'll take Amrita Sundari. Do you want to read the verse? And one paragraph of the purport. Make any comments. Govinda Bhakta, also feel free to add anything at any time you want, and anyone else as well. Also, the chat section is available. If you don't want to jump in at a certain point, but you're having some sort of realization, go ahead and share in the chat section as well. So either audibly, which you're certainly welcome to do at any time, or in the chat. There's 2 avenues by which you can contribute and add to enrich the discussion here.
शुश्रूषो श्रद्धानस्य वासुदेव कथारुचिः स्यान्महत्सेवया विप्राः पुण्यतीर्थनिषेवनात्. O twice born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. Translation purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The conditioned life of a living being is caused by his revolting against the Lord. There are men called devas or godly living beings, and there are men called asuras or demons who are against the authority of the Supreme Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita 16th chapter, a vivid description of the asuras is given, in which it is said that the asuras are put into lower and lower states of ignorance, life after life, and so sink to the lower animal forms and have no information of the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead. These asuras are gradually rectified to God consciousness by the mercy of the Lord's liberated servitors in different countries according to the supreme will. Such devotees of God are very confidential associates of the Lord, and when they come to save human society from the dangers of godlessness, they are known as the powerful incarnations of the Lord, as sons of the Lord, as servants of the Lord, or as associates of the Lord. But none of them falsely claim to be God themselves. This is a blasphemy declared by the asuras, and the demonic followers of such asuras also accept pretenders as God or his incarnation. In the revealed scriptures, there is definite information of the incarnation of God. No one should be accepted as God or an incarnation of God unless he is confirmed by the revealed scriptures.
Comments?
So the verse, because in the 15th verse, Sutta Goswami said, then who would not hear the message of Lord? By hearing the messages of God, our reactionary knot of our karma is broken. And for some of the sages who might have this question that, well, I don't have ruchi or taste for hearing about the Lord, then what? And then Sutta Goswami says, for one who doesn't have deep taste for hearing about the Lord, if he serves pure devotees of the Lord, then one automatically gains attraction for hearing about the Lord. It's just like, Prabhupada many times said, if you love the dog, the master will automatically be pleased with you. There's a story from South India. It seems Ramanujacharya, he sent one of his disciples to the homes of two of his disciples saying, just go and inform that I'll come to their home for lunch. And one of the disciples, when he heard, he was overjoyed and he started making preparations for the Guru Maharaj to come and to serve him. But he completely forgot about the messenger who came and delivered the message. But the other one, he received the messenger also with respect and honored him, and then started making preparations for Ramanujacharya to come. And then the messenger went back and told Ramanujacharya what happened. And Ramanujacharya chose to go to the person who honored his messenger first. I've experienced this many times. I get excited in service to Krishna, but then we make offenses. We ignore the devotees who are serving alongside us. Even like a casual visitor to the temple who comes and helps us in our service. We kind of don't pay them so much attention. But then I realized that's totally wrong. If we can just remember and be genuinely, appreciative and be in a service mode to devotees, Krishna will never be far behind. He'll be just around the corner. Yeah.
Nice example. Does anybody know the verses that talk about how the demoniac are cast down into the lower species of life? And also, does anybody have a story to tell? Because most people are innocent. They eat meat, they drink. But they're not necessarily committed to those activities as an act of faith. They don't get upset. They don't get enraged when you question those practices. And maybe they've even thought themselves whether it wouldn't be better if they didn't eat meat or didn't drink alcohol, but they're doing it just because of lack of proper guidance or better example among the higher ups in society. But there are some people that are definitely ungodly. They're committed to it. They're not only not open to the idea of reducing their own alcohol and meat consumption, but they're taxing their brains to figure out how they can increase it for themselves and others. So does anybody run across anybody like this? Does anybody have that kind of a story?
I have one story, Prabhuji.
Yes.
So just like the phrase "holy cow" is so popular in America, and my name being Surabhi, I associate with holy cow. So when they do it, my colleagues do it in front of me, I say, do you know what Surabhi means? It means holy cow, which you cut every night and eat it. So they say, one or two of them said, since you said that, I cannot eat meat anymore.
There you go. So just saying your name is preaching. I think your parents had that in mind when they named you.
Maybe.
No, it's amazing if more Indian people would just consider how their parents named them. It would give them a lot more direction in how and what their parents want for their lives, right, Sundari Priya?
Absolutely, Prabhuji. Snigdha was name given to me by my grandfather, and he was such a pious, gentle man, and I still remember him. And when I read Snigdha, in every verse is especially the prayers of Lord Shiva and the Damodara Ashtakam, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my name is so sacred. It's supposed to be submissive, lipid-like, then the essence of Krishna's lips is being described as Snigdha. So I feel so blessed. I need to work on the character of it.
Ishan, you had a story not too long ago, and maybe not the same story, but a variation of it. How a very nice fellow in your school, otherwise he seemed perfectly well behaved and genuinely, but just at the suggestion of going vegetarian, he just got very aggressive and pugnacious and enraged. Do you remember that story?
Yes, that's actually what I was just going to share. I've shared it before on the talk, or on the Zoom call, but there was this one time when I was at a debate tournament and we had this really nice volunteer who was willing to, spend that time with us. And usually we would pay our judges, but we didn't have any money. So he just came, and he was very nice to actually give up his entire weekend for us. And he was there and he said, hey, I have a donut. Do you want one? And I said, I'm vegetarian. I can't eat it. And he said, oh, but I mean, it doesn't have meat, right? And I was like, oh, but I don't eat eggs either. And just this kind of it felt like he took it personally, not just me being vegetarian, but the fact that I couldn't eat eggs. And it's not like I was telling him that you shouldn't eat it either. I was just, yeah, I'm vegetarian. I don't, eat. And then he got mad and he started talking about how being non-vegetarian is genetic or biologically what humans are made to do. And he started pretty much preaching that I should also become non-vegetarian. So yeah, and it's not just that one instance. There's a lot of instances where it's just at school, you're in the cafeteria, somebody offers a muffin or something and you say, I can't eat it because it has eggs. And they say, well, this egg probably wasn't going to become a chicken, I know where these come from. I made this at my house. And so, a lot of people just take it personally. And it's usually just the eggs and not the meat itself. Yeah.
All right. Anybody else have any stories?
I do actually have a very recent story. I'm still new to Bhakti. So I just recently, it's been a little over a month since I quit eating meat myself, but we have my, thank you. So my son's mother has been encouraging my son to eat meat. He's only about 2 years old and he doesn't like it. And I expressed my concerns with this. She's also increased her drinking as well as some drug use. And I've confronted her on it and asked that she not do that around him and not encourage that type of behavior around him. And she absolutely, she took it personally, like I was trying to control her life. when all I was really looking out for was my son's life and the conditions in which he's raised in and the development. And so she still continues to encourage him to eat meat, even though he doesn't like it. He is all about vegetables and fruits, and that's about it. But she keeps giving it to him, and he keeps spitting it out, and she won't stop trying to give it to him. And it's been a little frustrating for me, but I can't control her choices and her actions, but I can at least be an example myself for him, which has encouraged me to eliminate any kind of substances and meat from my own life. So I'm thankful to Krishna for that, and I hope that he can recognize that as he gets older.
Yeah, when he gets older, hopefully he'll come to a point where, due to your good example, he can make a better choice for himself.
That's what I asked Krishna for.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Anybody else?
Actually, when I was in a college, so one of my friend, he was like a strong meat eater. So one day we were just sitting together and the discussion came about this meat eating. And he said, what's wrong in that? I said, if you eat that, you will become demonic. And as Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, that Tanam Dvishata Kururan, Samsareshu Naradhaman, Kshipami Aham Ajastram Asunam Asureshwa Yonishu. I just throw them into that lower basis of life because they are the lowest of the mankind. Then he said, what about the other friend? What about him? I said, all they will go to the hell. He said, if all they are going to the hell, then what should I do in the heaven? Let me also go to the hell. So this is what the demonic mentality. If you try to preach them, they try to convince you that how you are wrong and they are right. And this is all over. So it's very difficult to come out of this shackle. So either give up that friendship and sidetrack them and go ahead, or otherwise we will be with them and go to see him that Asurish Yonishu then.
Otherwise, all their friends will be in hell, so they think they might be lonely in heaven.
That's what.
We were in Australia one time at a place called the Wayside Chapel where people gather. And they kind of just get things off their chest. There's a stage and people come up one after another. And so the Hare Krishnas used to go there and we'd have our say also. And the minister would encourage sensationalism. He would encourage extremism because it was kind of more like a show. So one Aboriginal guy got up there on stage and he was from an area that was predominantly black or Aboriginal. It's called Redfern in Sydney. And remember, this was in the 70s, so there was still a lot of Black Power, SDS, radical civil rights people, and so and we're sitting 4 or 5 Hare Krishnas in the audience, and for no reason whatsoever, and he talks about violence and overthrow and revolution, and then he pointed to the Hare Krishnas. We were just sitting there, and he said, if you Hare Krishnas ever come in, if I ever see any of you Hare Krishnas in Redfern with your turn the cheek philosophy, which, I mean, that was an assumption, I will kill you. I will personally kill you. And I thought, okay, well, if he took that birth, disadvantaged birth, because of offenses and a demoniac mentality in the last life, I don't see any sign that he's going to elevate himself in the next life. Seems like he's dropped down, and because of his bitterness and resentment and anger and hate, I could just almost picture in his next life not even getting the opportunity of a human birth, just on a downward spiral. So much of what we talk about is how you can have faith. You can still be full of joy, even when someone's not treating you fair, even when there are challenges, even when there are critics. It's just a test. If you maintain a good attitude when things are not going your way, and we've had 3 people already tell us that this past week showed them they're not in control. So if we just ground ourselves in the fact that we're not in control, and understand that the Lord's doing something in our lives to improve us, then we can be as joyful, even more joyful, when we're so-called oppressed or disadvantaged or treated unfairly. So those who blame others, who resort to violence and accusations and all are pretty much poster boys for this verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Tam aham asuram dvishatam samsarashu, that Govinda Bhakta quoted. What's the next verse? Does anyone know? Or if anyone has a story, please feel free to tell it. But also we're looking at the next verse in sequence too, in the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita.
I have one story. It's not a personal story, but this is a widely known story. Took place probably 20 years ago when there was one of the general authorities of the Mormon Church was taking a plane ride, and he happened to be seated right next on the plane to Mick Jagger, lead singer for the Rolling Stones. And the way this story is told, you can look it up on the internet, is they talked for quite a while, and at points it was pleasant conversation. But then essentially the question gets asked to Mick Jagger, what are you trying to accomplish through your music? And his answer was, I'm trying to convince the young people that there's no hope. So what they should do is just have sex and take drugs, and that's really what life is for. Talk about, using the position of prominence to cause harm. And I always kind of liked the Rolling Stones, and ever since I heard that story, it just makes me gag. There's no hope.
There's a special place for leaders. It's called Andan Tamasha.
Ishopanishad says about that. The people who misguide and accept anyone as the incarnation of God and go against the scriptural rule, that says andhastama praveshanti, ye asuram vishad, ye avidya upasate. The people who worship or accept the Nizains, they are put into the dungeon of the hell. So these are and Prabhupada clearly mentions that today's scientists, the materialistic and political leaders, they are the one who are dragging the whole population into the hell. So boldly he speaks about that in the purport.
While we've got you on the line, give us that second verse that follows that Twamaham Dusataha Koram, Govinda.
Oh, next one, it differentiates between the qualities, the result of Daivi Sampada, the Daivi Gunas and Asuri Gunas. Daivi Sampad Vimokshaya Nibandaya Asuri Mata. Mashucha Sampadam Daivi Abhijatosi Pandavaha. He speaks about that the transcendental qualities are conducive to liberation, whereas the demonic qualities make for bondage. Do not worry, O son of Pandu, for you are born with the divine qualities. That's the next verse about.
Okay.
But previous to that, he explains about the qualities of that Asuris.
Yeah, that's the one I was looking. Asuram Yonam Apana Mudha Janmani Mama Prapyava Kontyo Tito Yati Adaham Gatim. The goal of the divine is Urdhvam, it's upper.
Yeah.
But those who don't care for any scriptural injunctions, for any rules and regulations, pravritam cha, nivritam cha. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to not to do. They don't know what's allowed, and they don't know what's forbidden. Nasocham napichacharo. They have neither cleanliness nor proper behavior. Pravritam cha, nivritam cha. Janan navidur asuraha. Nasocham napichacharo. What's the last line?
Na satyam teshu vid.
Not teshu.
Na satyam teshu vidyati.
Which means?
Na satyam teshu, as you said, that they don't know about the truth. What is truth and what is wrong? They don't understand about that.
And they don't care.
Yeah.
So most people are just misguided. They're not intentionally going waywardly. They're just misguided by lack of leadership and role models. But there are people, and that's the subject of our talk today, who are die-in-the-wool committed to leading people down to the hellish regions of existence. But even those, it seems to indicate in the purport that even such persons can be redeemed by the mercy of a pure devotee. What's the prime example, do you think, of that? And I'll give you a hint. I'll give you a hint. Prabhupada
Jagai and
says,
Madhai.
I'll give you a hint. Listen, Prabhupada says in the purport to this verse, Tamaham Disataharam, he says the example of those who are gliding down, who are particularly demoniac, he says the example are the hunters in the jungle. So considering this, what's the best example of the power of a pure devotee to transform even the most demoniac?
Mrigarari.
What's the story?
Mrigarari and Narad Muni.
Yeah, that's it. But what are the details?
So Narad Muni's is walking through the forest and he sees, half dead animals who are suffering because of the wounds. And he finds the hunter who is hidden, and the hunter gets upset because of Narad Muni's presence. The animals run away. And then Narad Muni is trying to explain to him, the consequence of inflicting so much pain on living entities. He's like, rather, why don't you just kill them at one go? And he was in such a consciousness that he used to enjoy the animal's pain because that is what he was taught by his own father. So Narad Muni gives him a trailer of his future, and he gets very scared.
Coming attractions.
Yes. And then because of Narad Muni's presence and his compassion towards Mrigarari, he surrenders himself that if there is a way, you have to tell me a way to get out of this mess. And then Narad Muni says, give up whatever you have earned by killing animals, just donate everything. Come live in a small ashram, plant tulsi and chant the holy names of the Lord. And he's like, but then how will I sustain myself? And Narad Muni says, I'll arrange for that. Every day you'll have enough food to sustain you and probably his wife, I guess. And then when next time Narad Muni visits him with Parvat Muni, he's so cautious that he doesn't even want to step on ants, totally purified.
It's amazing. A verse came to me that I haven't recited in over 20 years. It just dropped. Ete nahi adbhuta vyadi tav ahimsari oguna. Narada Muni passed back that way after some time, where he originally talked to Mrigarari and gave him a preview of coming attractions. Mrigarari saw him, started coming to offer his obeisances to his guru, but Narada saw, and Narada was, I think, with some other Muni, and Parasara or some other Muni, and he saw before he did dandavats, before he placed the weight of his body on the dirt path, he brushed any ants away so that he would not cause any harm to them. And when Narada saw this, he turned to his companion and he said, Ete ni nahi adbhuta vyadi tab aham sayara guno. Adbhuta is like astonishing. Isn't it astonishing that this asura, this demoniac personality who had formerly taken pleasure not just in killing, but wounding, half killing, torturing, enjoying their writhing in pain, now, after having met a pure devotee of the Lord, he won't even kill an ant. Ahimsaya. Now he is totally non-violent.
And this reminds me of Gopal Krishna Maharaj when he goes, like my husband went for walks with him a couple of times. And when Maharaj would walk, he walks very fast and he's chanting also. But then he will stop suddenly and says, there is an ant, tell Hare Krishna to him. And everybody's wondering, how did he notice an ant? He's walking so fast, he's chanting. And then he says, okay, there's an ant, come on, say Hare Krishna to him. So, it's unbelievable how conscious they are of other living entities and their suffering and trying to, elevate them.
There's one more story also about a liberated soul that didn't want to step on ants. Does anyone want to briefly mention that?
Hmm. Jada Bharat.
Yes. Jad Bharat. Does anybody remember the story? Does anybody want to tell us that? Surabhi, have you read that story in your Bhagavatam yet?
No, not yet.
Story.
Okay. Matsud,
It's when he's I believe it's when he was carrying a palanquin, correct?
Yeah, give us the details.
Well, what I remember is vague, but Jud Bharat was carrying a palanquin, and it was because of him stopping for the various insects on the path, it was making the palanquin rise up and down, and I believe he was chastised for this.
Yes, by whom?
I don't remember.
What was his name? His
Maharaj
future,
Rahugana.
his future disciple, in fact. Yes. Yeah, I think Govinda Bhakta said it. I was talking at the same time. His name was Maharaj Rahugana. Maharaj Rahugana.
Who happens to be his that deer in previous life actually. To deliver that same deer, he spoke out first time. Otherwise, that knowledge would have not come. So that's what the pure devotee actually, when he understands that what was the cause of his bondage and who was the object of that bondage, he becomes very much attached to that person to deliver him. The same bondage actually, what created that bond for him in this material world, he used that same bond to deliver that person. So that's the compassion of pure devotee. Jada Bharat, he first time spoke it out and gave him that knowledge, through which we also got that knowledge about we are not this body but spirit, soul, and how we have to come out of that Dehatma Buddhi. It was wonderful.
It's interesting because, we talk about the lack of cleanliness, lack of proper behavior of those who have been exposed and infected by demoniac mentality. But ultimately, everybody is a pure spirit soul, part and parcel of God. And we see instances like Jad Bharat, he made a mistake in his past life. He became a deer. But then he leveraged that to liberate Maharaj Rahugana. And of course, through Rahugana, so many others. So there's a saying, your mess becomes your message.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and some of the greatest preachers, some of the greatest gurus who have wholesale transformed people have been some that were the most fallen. Vaishnavas like us might have looked at them and said, no hope. They're too offensive. They're too demoniac. We might have said that, but it would have been premature because there's nothing you can do that's bigger than the mercy of the Lord to deliver you and the Lord's devotees.
Actually, the life of Sri Ramanujacharya is full of all these examples just for compassion. Like whenever he used to travel, he make sure that he used to wash his hand in flowing river. So one day as he washed his hand in the flowing river, some fishes, they ate the remnants of his hands. And they just got the 400 forms and they got liberated. So other of his disciples, they asked how that we ate every day your Maha, but that's not happening with us. How they got? Then there Ramanujacharya explains that because they are not offensive. They never commit offense. Even once he was climbing up to Tirumala, he never used to climb with his foot actually. He used to climb with the knees because it's not different from Lord Ananta. So once he was going and he saw there is a line of ants was crossing by that road. So he was really waiting there on his knees till the whole line gets finished, they cross over. And then he walked. So his disciples, they were thinking, our Guru Maharaj was so compassionate that he even thinks about the ants. Then what to speak of us? We are not having that proper reciprocation with him. If we have that, then this lifetime itself we will get liberated. So this is the attitude of a pure devotee because he sees everyone as a pure soul, a part and parcel of the Lord. As Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, the devotees are adoshadarshi. They never find faults with anyone. Why? because they see adosha. Adosha means who does not have fault. And who does not have fault? The Lord. As they see everywhere Lord, so for them there is no fault, there is no contamination in this world. Because for them everything is Lord. Vasudevam Sarvamiti. So
Kale doshe nidhe rajan asti kadmaram kirtanyareva krishnasya mukta sangam param vijay. Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults. Praying out Bayosha Shabda Kaloishmin Yuga Manda Sandatya Mandahil Padritaha. And yet look at the power of the Lord's devotees, that even in the Kali Yuga, even when everybody is like Jagai and Madai, look at what they can do. Jagai and Madai did murder, they did rape, they did extortion, they did manslaughter, they did it says that, what's his name? Chitra, the bookkeeper of Yamaraj?
Chitragupta.
Chitragupta, he's like the accountant. He keeps, and I guess this is before they had digital. They had whole warehouses from floor to ceiling with the files of Jagai and Madai's sins. They actually ran out of space. They didn't know where they were going to put, and Jagai and Madai were committing more sins more quickly than they could keep a record of it. And yet look at the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu, the original spiritual master. Chitragupta, he didn't know what to do. He was at his wit's end. He couldn't keep track anymore. It was running away from him. He had no more space. And so just imagine the sigh of relief he breathed when, due to the mercy of Lord Nityananda, Jagai and Madai completely transformed. And then Madai, he went to, was it Nityananda or was it Lord Chaitanya? And he asked him, how can I atone for all the sins? And he said, I can't go to individuals because I was drunk most of the time. I was in a drunken fog. So I don't know whose relatives I killed, what women I abducted, who I beat up, who I stole from. The whole thing is just a fog. I have no recollection. So how do I atone? And he was told, build a ghat, build a bathing ghat, and you stay there as an attendant. You stay there as an attendant, and whoever comes there, you just tell them, I committed so many sins. I don't know whether I offended you or not, but I'm here at your service. Anything you want. You want a towel, you want a bar of soap, you want some food, I'm here to serve you, to take the dust of the lotus feet of the devotees on my head to some or other atone for all my sinful activity. So as harsh as these words are, and as condemnatory, Krishna says, I cast them down amongst the lower species of life. At the same time, we see that the devotees are more merciful, isn't it? They're more merciful. I mean, that's what Krishna would do, but the devotee still would try and often succeeds in saving them.
Actually, once Maharaj Janak, as he was passing by to the hellish planets, all the residents of hellish planets who are suffering there, getting tortured for, or getting punished for their sins, for the period as Janak Maharaj was crossing there, everyone felt relief of all their punishments, and they were having a, what they can say, really jubilation in their heart. And everyone was amazed, why this happening? So they inquired about. Then some gatekeeper said, just Janak Maharaj passed by from this area. So this is what the presence of a liberated person, by his passing by only, you can get relief of all your sufferings. And that's why scripture says that Kshanamatra sadhu sangha sarva siddhiha. Even the moment of that association can give you all the perfections.
Bhavad Bhida Bhagavatas Tirtha Bhuta Shrayambhu Tirtur Kurvanti Tirtani Shrantastena Grabhridaha. Devotees themselves are tirtas, they're places of pilgrimage. It says, Yatpadasam Saya Sutta Munya Prisha Sadhya Panantyo Pastuta Swardhinyapani Sevaya. The Ganges can purify only after an extended period of time by taking bath. But a pure devotee of the Lord can purify instantly
Yeah.
by his presence and by the words coming from his mouth.
That's wonderful.
Today, Guru Maharaj was saying, Prabhu, that the greatest suffering is that the lack of association of the pure devotees. That is the suffering.
Actually, that's what the conversation between Ramananda Rai and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Yeah.
So Mahaprabhu asked him a question, what is the greatest suffering in the world? And he says that if you don't find an association of pure devotee, that is the greatest suffering.
More on this, Kapilji. You want to read the next paragraph in the purport here?
Sure, Prabhu. The servants of God are to be respected as the God by the devotees who actually want to go back to Godhead. Such a poetic sentence, Prabhu. The servants of the God are to be respected as God by the devotees who actually want to go back to Godhead. Such servants of God are called Mahatmas or Tirthas, and they preach according to particular time and place. The servants of God urge people to become devotees of the Lord. They never tolerate being called God. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was God himself according to the indications of revealed scriptures, but he played the part of a devotee. People who knew him to be God addressed him as God, but he used to block his ears with his hands and chant the name of Lord Vishnu. He strongly protested against being called God, although undoubtedly he was God himself. The Lord behaves so to warn us against unscriptural men who take pleasure in being addressed as God. Sure, Prabhu, there are a lot of examples. I think two things that caught our attention is one is this concept of tirtha and the concept of ruchi. I think that's prominently highlighted by Srila Prabhupada in the purport. The concept of being a chintamani and the concept of Cheto Darpan Marjanam. Like there are gurus, sometimes their disciples, they call them God. In the outset, they may not feel that they are God, but as they got puffed up, when the disciples start calling them, it's their responsibility to correct the disciples. But people start enjoying that new position that people acquire. So the example comes to the mind is Vidur Maharaj. When he comes back from the pilgrimage, Yudhishthir Maharaj tells him that you are the personification of Tirtha. The definition of a Tirtha is a place where Lord has performed the pastimes, but the Purn Tirtha is the pure devotee. As Yudhishthir Maharaj says, that the God resides in your heart. There are a lot of examples. Charuprabhu, in one of your lectures, you mentioned that the Bhagavad Gita, initially people used to call it the gospel of Hindus, arrived here, the Western world, about maybe 200, 250 years ago. And the Chintamani arrived in 1965. And there wasn't a devotee in between. Like the book has arrived, but the devotee wasn't created in between.
In their heart.
It's just that in 1965, when Srila Prabhupada, the Chintamani, the touch stone who arrived, he transformed. As Prabhupada himself says that all these degraded asura dancing peacocks. So I think this verse is an amazing example of that. Talks about the process, as we are talking about the gurus or the pseudo gurus or the bogus gurus. They need to understand what is worshipable versus the worshipper. And once you understand that distinction, I think the process itself is easy. As you said that it is impossible to reach to Lord because he is pure, and you cannot reach to him unless you have the association of pure devotees. So that's my understanding of this verse.
Onkar has come on, and we always appreciate Onkar's deep and well thought out comments. He took initiation recently from Radhanath Maharaj, and many of our congregants are initiates of Radhanath Maharaj. But Onkar, do you want to share any personal reasons why you quickened your interest in Krishna consciousness to the point of wanting to commit and apply for initiation as opposed to just taking it more casually as a congregational member. What's the difference between an initiated and uninitiated devotee in terms of their realizations and their commitment?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
A little louder if you can make it.
So, sure. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Is it loud enough now?
Speak up.
Okay. Is it okay, Prabhu, now?
Yes, it's good now.
Yeah.
Much better. Bro.
Please accept my humble obeisances. Actually, I came into Krishna consciousness by hearing some of the talks of Radhanath Maharaj in my initial days, and I had that attraction towards him. But it was 3 to 4 years from that point of time till last year February. I got something convinced in my heart. Yes, I want to pursue initiation from Radhanath Maharaj, and the thing that inspired me, that this process of initiation will help me get a permanent relationship with him, lifetime after lifetime, long even after that, and an eternal relationship as a servant of him. And that really inspired me that yes, I want to have this relationship, and I want to serve Maharaj eternally. And that helped. And if this process is getting uh, allowing me to do that, then I think I want to sign up for this process. And that's what inspired me, and become more uh, quickened up, as you said. So that love, his love, and uh, his teachings, his behavior or demeanor, we can say. So everything inspired me just to get a eternal relationship with him as his servant. So I thought that's what it's.
Thank you for sharing that. Sundari Priya, do you want to share anything in that same line, that same mood? Are you still there, or she's gone off to receive a guest or a visitor?
Yeah, actually, Mataji went to kitchen, I guess.
Okay.
So I have a question to Omkar Prabhu.
Omkar.
Do you not have peer pressure? How do you deal with your peer pressure? That's what my question is.
Thank you, Mataji, for asking that question. Actually, I just choose not to deal with it. So people sometimes call me, like there was one of my friend who came to the temple, and he asked me, we will go to the restaurant next weekend. I told him I don't eat outside. And he asked me, how can you not eat outside? I said, I just choose not to. And that's all. I just try to quit the conversation as quick as possible. And I thank to Govind Bhakta Prabhuji also. He also helps me and supports me in that, just protecting me from peer pressure and others. And I just try to just do as much as I can.
What issues do you have, Sarabi, in that area?
I do not have peer pressure, but I see the young people just like Omkar Prabhuji and my kids. So I think that they see one type of culture here inside the house, and then they go to the school and they are with the friends, there is different things. So when they come home, they have certain questions to me, and so that was the reason I asked him.
What are some of those questions? Maybe we can help you with the answers.
It's just like all my friends have iPhone, I do not. All my friends have nice computer, I do not. And like, why don't you buy me a car? Why did you give me your car and not buy me a new car? So things like that.
Sounds like you have your hands full there.
Yes, I am. Yeah, they are full.
Ishan, you wanna say anything here? You're probably about the same age and background as these kids. You want to say anything to their mom?
I mean, I would love to, but I'm honestly in the same trap. Like, I just remember now that she brought this up a few months ago, I asked for the new iPhone. So I can't say anything, but on this topic.
I just love your innocence and truthfulness there. Thank you.
I just wanted to add, like, this just topic of fake, or this fake gods, right? And they're not fake gurus, but like fake gods, right? They claim themselves to be God. There's this show that we actually got on CDs called Abhay Charan, which was the story of Srila Prabhupada, directed by devotees, and most of the actors are devotees too. And there's this one scene in which a devotee, I forgot their name, but somebody runs up to them and says, "I just met God. You should come talk to him with me." And he says, "Who is this God?" Right? And it was just a Mayavadi who was providing solutions to temporary solutions to material problems. So he goes there, and this Mayavadi says, "What is the problem in saying I am God if I'm just helping them, right? I'm not doing anything bad to them. I'm, providing them food, right? If they want a son, I'm giving them the blessing of getting a son. What wrong am I doing by calling myself God?" And the devotee says that you are committing the greatest sin by giving them like temporary solutions, by calling God, or you're hurting them in the long run, because you're not directing them towards the real solution to all material problems, which is Lord Krishna.
Govinda Dev, you've been silent. I'm sure you can say something on this topic.
I'm sorry, the comments have been interesting, but when I was out for a couple of minutes, I don't know exactly what the topic is.
We're talking about devotees of the Lord, the power of devotees of the Lord, the fact that devotees are more merciful than the Lord himself, because they go after delivering people who even the Lord himself has pretty much written off as going down into the lower species of life. And then we also got under the topic in the second paragraph of the purport about how it's the greatest blasphemy to call yourself as God, or to allow your disciples to refer to you in the same way.
So let me add up something. Actually, there's one pastime, I think, Charu Prabhu, you must be knowing that person, Siddhaswarup Swami. He started propagating that Prabhupada is God. And Prabhupada just thrashed him away and asked him to just quit ISKCON. We don't want this rubbish. And he just threw him away from the society. So that's the quality, as Kapil Prabhu was saying, that pure devotee, he never considers himself as a god, even though he's a pure and true representative. And Prabhupada never accepted that. So that we have a wonderful example for that. It's Prabhupada. And for the compassion, you know that story in San Francisco, the first time when Jagannath Baldev Subhadraji appeared. Shyam Sundar Prabhu was carving Jagannathji, and Balramji was right there. On top of Balram's head, there was a packet of cigarette. And one was in his mouth, and he was carving Jagannathji. And Prabhupada came to see that. He was very happy that Jagannath has manifested there. And if we would have been there, maybe I would have been there, I would have chastised him first. But when Prabhupada just going back, he looked at him, he said that, why you're keeping this small thing in between you and Krishna? And Shyam Sundar Prabhu says that, that's the last day of my smoking. I finished it up. So this is how the compassion, the pure devotee he has for the people who are so conditioned. Even though they know, once we asked Shyam Sundar Prabhu, actually what was that really attracted you people to Prabhupada? Because you were like your 20s, early 20s actually. Then he said, we were not understanding what he was saying. Because first of all, his British Bengali accent of English. So we are like a 0% to understand what he says. But then I asked him that, how you love Krishna, that black boy? Because that's what they used to call Krishna in initial stage. So he said, we love Krishna because we love Prabhupada, and he was Prabhupada's God. So that's what, the pure devotee's compassion for conditioned souls. So we have a great example, the Prabhupada's life for us. What are the qualities of pure devotee? And the way how he shows his compassion. Even Nartaki Mataji, I think you were together in Australia. I asked her how you came to Krishna consciousness and why you got attracted to Prabhupada. She said that, see, we were not knowing anything about philosophy. The same reason she told me about Prabhupada's accent. And then she said that most important thing that really we got attracted to his compassion that was he was having in his eyes. His eyes are so compassionate. Such a compassion we never saw in anyone. And that's why we got attracted to him. So each and every activity of pure devotee that attracts the conditioned soul. Actually, once Harish Auri Prabhu was telling, when someone came to meet Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was just, as you know, his regular posture of sitting, like keeping one hand on knee and other on the other knee and sitting like a Sethji. So Harish Auri Prabhu came and he gave him an orange. He just sucked and there was a seed of orange in his mouth. So he just like thrown that seed out of his mouth, and that went and exactly dropped into the dustbin. The visitor, he saw that and he became a great fan of Prabhupada. And next day he joined full time. It seems to be a very casual thing, but that also attracted that person and he dedicated his life. So this is what pure devotee and his gestures, his behavior, his activities.
Govinda, is that why every LDS temple has a basketball net and court in it?
Well, there's this belief.
Is that why a lot of people becomes Mormons? Because they what is it? They make the shots.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So that's why we have a soccer goal in the backyard of the Krishna temple we have here, so that Krishna and I can show off our skills and have other kids come join the temple.
Everybody better get back there and start practicing.
But first of all, that you need to be a pure devotee, like, so that you can attract them.
That's the most important thing.
I think it takes a lot of practice to be able to flick a seed out of your mouth and make a basket. That's a pure devotee for sure.
That is what Daksha means, you know. The quality of pure devotee is Daksha. Daksha means they are expert. They know how to do, when to do, what to do. That's why they used to call. Prabhupada was so meticulous in his activities. Very perfectionist. Like Bhakti Charu Maharaj, Prabhupada taught him cooking. And Prabhupada was for even milligrams of ingredients in the sabji, you know. He can just make it out. This was much more and this is less and this is what the quantity. So he was really expert. That comes.
So without a specific idea of God, there's always a danger that people will take the guru or the messenger as God. And I want Govinda to say something about that. I was on a panel, an interfaith panel the other night with a Mormon, evangelical Christian, a Muslim, and myself. And the evangelical Christian, he was very sincere in his appreciation for Christ. He made some very moving comments. He was obviously deeply committed. It had obviously made a big difference in his life. But I had to speak after him, and I had to find a niche. I had to make my own contribution, or the contribution of my culture. And to be honest, I had to say that Christ never. I said. I think Kapil, you watched it. I said Christ is not God. You know, he gave this great tribute about Christ, and then I followed him, and I said, you know, Christ is everything he says he is. He's a deliverer. He's a guru. He's a representative of God, but he is not God. And if you want to follow the orders of the guru, which is to love God with all your heart and all your soul and your might, I said you're at a disadvantage if you don't know who God is. Because how can you follow Jesus Christ's number one commandment to worship God if you don't know who God is. And so then I had some slides from the Brahma Samhita, and I explained about departure evahidasharamtama, ekopya shamra chayatam jagalandakoti, all those things, so that they'll fill out more their idea of God, because that's who Christ was directing you to. He wasn't asking to be worshipped. And I think Christianity misses it. Born again Christianity misses it. They're starting to worship Christ and speak of him as God. And I think that's off the path. If you look at Swami Narayan, also, he was a great devotee of Krishna. But some or other, they lost Krishna, and now they're worshiping Swami Narayan as God in much the same way the Christians are worshiping him as God. And here I'm going to say something very controversial. When I put the graphic up on my Facebook page that I was going to be on this interfaith panel, predictably, there was somebody from the ISKCON world who put the zinger there. Prabhupada never did interfaith discussions, okay? All right. So I thought, well, that's what disciples are for. Prabhupada he had to establish a whole worldwide movement. Why is he going to go do interfaith discussions? It's beneath him, but that's what I can do as a menial servant of Prabhupada. But here's what I was thinking. These kinds of people who hit you over the head with a stick, Prabhupada didn't do this, Prabhupada didn't do that, Prabhupada didn't do that. I believe that they've fallen into the same trap of taking Prabhupada as God. What do you think about that from an LDS perspective, Govinda Dev?
Well, first I would note that whoever it was that said that, it's actually not true, because there's that conversation that's recorded where Prabhupada is talking to the Catholic priest about meat eating. I would say that that's an interfaith dialogue right there on a spiritual topic. I'm sure if there were other representatives of other faiths there, that Prabhupada would have spoken to them too. So, I mean, just factually not correct. As far as the LDS,
do you think that Jesus Christ would refute some of the claims of the born-again Christian that he's God? Do you think that Joseph Smith would refute some things? And do you think that Prabhupada would repudiate some of the so-called claims of his so-called disciples?
well, the notion that Jesus is God himself, it is embraced, I think, by a large part of Christianity. The doctrine of the Trinity in the Catholic Church, that the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost are actually all one and the same. So the Father and the Son, Jesus and God the Father, are actually the same being, same substance. I don't think it's borne out myself in the scriptures, because wherever Jesus is talking about his Father, Jesus is clearly the servant. And he says, I only do those things that please him, which is, that's bhakti. My life is to serve. I have to say that, Charu, you really kind of blew out the competition in that interfaith. And I know it was not a competitive activity, but my feeling was that there was a lot of sharing of sentiment by the other participants. And I thought it was very vital the way that you distinguished that there is sentiment and that there is philosophy, and that you really need to have both to have a complete, full faith, embrace of divinity. But the problem in Christianity is that we have a fair amount of information about Jesus, but there's nothing known about the God that Jesus worshiped. I mean, literally, there's 3 or 4 words that are spoken in all of Scripture by God the Father that we have that information about. And I'm becoming increasingly of the view that if someone is bona fide interest in God, that if there's a faith like the Hare Krishnas that actually have this vast amount of scriptural information about God the Father, the Creator, the Source, that people should be interested in that. And it's a bit discouraging to me that I have a very difficult time convincing someone that, well, you know, you just read the Bhagavad Gita. You can do that quickly. You'll learn more about God there than you're going to learn at any other place. But, you know, I think it's not a big surprise. So many people are interested in the identity that comes along with being part of this or that faith. They want the identification, but they're not so much really wanting to learn the truth. And I think they probably heard from you, Charu, more about the nature of God when you were quoting Brahma Samhita. I think some people are probably saying, whoa, this is too much. Back off, pal. We just wanted to have a nice little conversation here. But I think probably there were some people who were listening and said, wow, because it's also, you know, it was so engaging. Anyway, my thoughts.
One thing is I felt like I was just getting warmed up, and the others pretty much had said everything they came to say. But I think everyone got a feeling I could have gone on all night about God, no other subject. And that's true. That's actually true. I would have loved to have just gone on and on and on. Kapil, any thoughts? And then we'll go to Kirtan and Amrita Sundari.
Ravi, that's a great example. I think one other thing that it also came from your lecture few months ago, I would say, when you quoted this verse that is Naham Tistami Vakunte Yoginam Hrideshua. I think that summarizes this verse nicely. It talks about both the aspects that we are trying to understand today, is the importance of Punya Tirthas in our life, but also the importance of transcendental chanting and glorifying Krishna. It says that if you try to find me in the place, in the Vaikuntha, which is the kingdom of God, he's saying that I may not be there, and I may not be there in the heart of yogis. I'll be there when you have a Muni like Narada and people are glorifying me and chanting. So it's a great example of, I think that's a very nice quotation that I loved, that summarizes this entire notion what Prabhupada is trying to highlight in this purport.
It's actually this analogy that I just wanted to add really quick. And I think that like ties in very well to this. Sorry. But the analogy is, and this is just something we learned in training in soccer, but there was this one person that everybody called out. He was like me, right? He was very thin. So they said, you need to go work out or else you won't stand a chance against these taller, bigger players. And he just became so bogged down in working out that he became more of a bodybuilder than he did a soccer player. So he lost kind of the sight of where he was trying to go with what he was doing, because he just kind of like got so caught up on becoming stronger that he could not even play soccer anymore, right? He'd forgotten the techniques. He couldn't pass the ball anymore. And so I just think that you can't become bogged down in the messenger or the person, the path. You know, you need to get to the destination at one point too. So
good example. Very good
Great
example.
point.
Yeah, some people like to stick to only scriptural injunctions, but we encourage you to think of intersecting points in your own life and apply them to Krishna consciousness. I remember a devotee came to Prabhupada and complained about Hridayananda. He's always making up his own examples. And Prabhupada said, he can do that. He's very intelligent. He can do that, you know.
It's said that
I love
applied
it.
spiritualism.
Yeah, applied spiritual. So I love it that Ishan is always reaching into his own experience to give us examples and draw parallels in Krishna consciousness. I love that, especially from a young person. Anybody have any other comments? Thanks, Helen Lima on Facebook Live, Radhe Sham, Michelle, Guru Krishnadas, Ankar, Krishan Chaudhuri, Kusham Demon. Thanks for joining us on Facebook Live. John Malik. Anybody have any other comments at all? anything you'd like to share, get off your chest before we go to Amrita Sundari for the closing kirtan?
As we have Govinda Bhakta Prabhu, I have a quick question. I think it came time and again about this concept of twice born, and we heard in the previous lectures, but any anecdotes that Govinda Bhakta Prabhu you want to share on this concept of twice born?
Twice born is like a person who is initiated. Twice born is Dvija. Dvija means even teeth, we call them as a twice born because they come twice in our life. So same way, any conditioned soul, if he get properly initiated in a parampara, he's called as a twice born. It's not that only having a Brahmika initiation is a twice born. Twice born means who has accepted a spiritual master and who got the first message, a personal message for him, for his deliverance. That person is considered as a Dvija.
Yeah. And Prabhu, I had a lecture on this topic as well, specifically on this topic that says that when you are born, you are in one particular consciousness. And as you get initiated, I think that's the first step of, it's the beginning basically to the path of Krishna consciousness. So it's getting the supreme or the transcendental consciousness. But I was thinking that any personal anecdotes, like anything that you want to share on this concept of like the life has changed after being initiated.
Yeah, that's there. You know, look at me, myself. I would have been a gangster. If you see my past, I have done murder at the age of 14. Can you imagine? You can't. But that's what my background. I came from that. And came to Krishna consciousness because my first girlfriend she died with the appendix operation. I was totally frustrated with the life and came to first class of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and there he was speaking about the Dehino Asmin Yatha Dehe. And that was the day. And the first question I asked, why everyone is fear, they have a fear of death. Maharaj told me that because this bodily conception of life. You are attached to the body, and at the time of death, you have to leave your body, you have to give it up. So you are giving up everything related to body. So you are having that fear. And that's changed the whole life. You know, the first answer itself had changed the life. And I gave up everything, just forget about and moved to this life. And that's why my friends, the old friends, when they see me giving lectures, they said, Dekho, 100 billi khake, 100 chuhe khake, billi haj ko chali. After eating 100 mouse, the cat is going to the pilgrimage. So whole thing changes, you know.
Yes, that's good.
That's the association and the mercy of devotee.
Excellent, Prabhu. Excellent.
Thank you for sharing that.
Good.
Detail.
Good that Sham.
There is a lawyer. I forgot.
And Prabhu, it's very good that Shamsundar Prabhu was not smoking in front of you.
Here's the Yata Kancham Rashabidan Tata Dikshabidana Dvijatvam Jayateninam. One should know the Acharya as myself, Krishna says, and never disrespect him in any way. One should not envy him, thinking him an ordinary man, for he is the representative of the demigods. Now, without the attentive service of his parents, a child cannot grow to manhood. Similarly, without the care of the spiritual master, one cannot rise to the plane of transcendental service.
That's great, Prabhu.
And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says to Sanatan Goswami, when he speaks about the Diksha, he says that Diksha Kale Guru Kare Atmasama, or Krishna Kare Atmasama. At the time of initiation, spiritual master and Krishna, he makes that jiva as they are. He makes him pure, you know. So that's why it's our total new birth at the time of initiation, and it gives you a second birth. That's why it is called as a Dvija.
That was great.
Having a second birth.
Oh, thank you so much. And with the example that you quoted between Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sanatan Goswami, I think Charu Prabhu also quoted in one of his lectures, and he said that Sanatan Goswami used to say that for me, you are the Lord. And I think that Prabhupada mentioned in the paragraph that he used to put fingers in his ears and say Vishnu, 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 which means, and Prabhu, as we know that there are a lot of indication that talks about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu being the Lord himself, but in that particular pastime, it was like highlighting the importance of Guru and not accepting as God, like I'm the God.
Shikshartam, Shikshartam, Purusha Paranam. He comes to teach us. And he never allows anyone to call him as God. That's God. That's God teaching us, not to confuse the representative with the one who sent him.
Sai Pramanam, by his own example, he wanted to set it up.
Yeah.
That's the purpose. That Sarvabhaum Shatak, that's the first verse of what you quoted now, actually.
So Lord Chaitanya made it so you can never make the mistake of worshiping the Guru as God. Maybe that wasn't made so clear by Jesus Christ. Maybe that wasn't made so clear by Swami Narayan. But we are fortunate that in Sampradaya, it is crystal clear through Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as represented by Prabhupada.
See, actually, Mahaprabhu took initiation, sannyas initiation from Mayavadi Sampradaya. In Mayavadi Sampradaya, this concept, Guru as a God, is very prominent. Brahmanandam Brahma Sugadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim. That verse itself explains that this is what Guru means, who is God himself. And Mahaprabhu took initiation from that, but he established the Vaishnava Siddhanta, that Sakshad Haritvena, he is like us, Lord himself, but he is a servitor God. That's the concept that we have. Actually, we have that profound philosophy of Guru Shishya Parampara. We have all the evidences for that. And we should be proud for this wonderful asset that Mahaprabhu has given to us. A clear, crystal clear understanding about Guru Tattva. You won't find anywhere, because I have been to all other Sampradayas. I have seen, I was in Advaita Sampradaya, studied their books. But ultimately, what you get it here, the proper understanding that the first introduction of Ishopanishad, that clears away all this misconception about Guru, fake Gurus. So we have a really wonderful philosophy with us.
We start our day with that philosophy, Vande Guru Shri Charana Arvindam, that we get the grace through, the grace of God through
Spiritual
Guru.
master.
Exactly. Amrita Sundari, where are you?
Right here, Prabhuji.
Are you down
She's
there?
ready with her ayudhas.
You sitting on the floor? What are you doing?
No, I just have the harmonium on the table, so I'm standing.
What a beautiful kirtan. Thank you very much, Amrita Sundari. And thanks for your
Beautiful.
comments.
Hare Krishna.
Everybody contributed in a major way to the discussion. Govinda Dev, Kapil, Sarabi, Rob, as well as, of course, Sundari Priya, Amrita Sundari. And we especially appreciative. He's probably gone to do some service now. I think we're really appreciative of Govinda Bhakta dropping in today. Really, he really added a lot to the discussion, a lot of deep insights, a lot of wide, broad-reaching references. So we're glad that he dropped in. He doesn't hear me now, but Sundari Priya, if you can hear me, tell him we appreciate it. Anytime that he can drop in, we'll certainly be glad that he does so. All right. Anything else at all? I've got, I didn't notice it. I'm sorry for this, but I asked people to use the chat and they actually did. And there's a lot in the chat here. If you want to take a minute and look at it. Messages from Kapil, from Govinda Bhakta, from Surab, from Onkar, from Rob. Rob said, yes, Rob, this is the story that the hunter sees animals being reincarnated with the power to cause them suffering. That, yes, that's it. His name is Mrigrari. What does Mra mean in Hindi? Mra? Kapil? Mrig?
Mrig is deer, Prabhu.
What is that?
Deer.
Deer, okay. He's half killing the deer, the rabbits, and the other animals. Yeah. So that's the exact story that we were referring to. All right. Anything else at all? It's been wonderful. I feel like I'm not even touching the ground now due to all of your association.
Jai.
Yeah. Charu, thank you for being our Punya Tirtha. And also the analogy that I'll remember from our class, there are a lot of wonderful things that we discuss, but Chitragupt getting digital is my favorite today.
And then they just took everything and they just dumped it into the Grand Canyon. After Madai changed, they just dumped it all into the Grand Canyon, you know. He got rid. It was a big headache for him, but he got rid of it due to the mercy of the Lord Nityananda. Well, thank you very much. We owe so much to each other, and we're so appreciative to everyone taking the time to get together and share in a meaningful way on these Sundays. Words cannot express. Pancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyascha patitanam pavanebhyo
Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare.